Greetings and salutations to our fine podcast audience. Welcome to 3 Peas in a Pod, episode 196.
We made it.
We did, but there's a caveat to that today.
Oh, is there?
Yes.
So 196A?
B.
B, this is B.
Okay.
But nobody knows that. So what I'm...
Well, wait a minute. I'm a somebody.
Well, you are
know.
somebody, but they don't know.
I am somebody.
Whatever you say. So what I'm referring to, you guys who are watching, listening don't know, but we did film episode 196 a while ago, and we had some problems.
Yes.
Something happened. Something I don't understand in the world of computers.
Does anybody know what happened?
We know that the file is corrupt. That is all that we know.
Aren't they all corrupt, Nathan?
Well, I don't know. Based on the question we are re-answering today, maybe it's all corrupt. But I will say no.
Since we've been told it comes from our number one fan.
Yes, that is true.
Yes.
No, we think we have solved the problem. We think we know what the problem was.
Because I don't want to do this again.
Well, it may happen.
It's not in my contract.
C.
I
We
can
can do it in C. This would be 190.
I'll have to see that contract. I'll need to see it before we decide whether we are going to do it.
I shall produce it.
There
Okay.
was a time where we had contracts.
You will actually produce it.
I used to give
You will
out.
just produce a contract and then bring it to us.
and make it say whatever I want.
That's right. This is what it said.
So we did answer this question on 196A, which is now corrupted and no longer usable.
doesn't exist.
So we're going to answer it again because
It's the world's longest question.
it is a long one, but because we love our number one fan, Chelsea, so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
She sent us this question. She told me the other day, she said,
I
I'm
would
the
just
number
like
one
to
fan.
start a competition. We don't know Chelsea's the number one fan.
We don't. We're making
But
it
I
up.
would make that be open to people can win number one fandom.
Well, what we would have to do is come up with standards for what makes you a number one fan.
That's true.
Make me happy.
Oh, exactly. That ain't going to happen.
All right. Yeah. I don't know.
Been working on that for a while. No. So, Chelsea, your question for the second time, but this is the only first time you've heard it. We're going to try, and this should be clear. We don't remember what we said the last time.
No.
It's been a couple weeks.
So you get a fresh take it. So
No.
maybe the second time will be better.
or worse,
Or
but you will
worse.
never know.
You never know. Question. What's your take on worldly entertainment? Music, TV shows, movies, books. It's all provocative and not at all godly. Many even downright evil and demonic. Even the children's shows are evil and demonic. Do you think partaking in these things is sinful? It seems like every single thing I come across makes me feel convicted. I personally have stopped watching TV and listen only to gospel or country music.
Not demonic?
We'll comment on that later. And I have switched my book genre to strictly faith-based books. But I know that's a long shot for my kids since they attend school, they like TV shows and music that their friends show them. I certainly do not want to overly shelter them because I know how that turns out, because I was a very rebellious teen for the same reasons. How do we do it? That's the question.
How do we?
How do we
How
do it?
do we do it?
I'll say this. If your final question of how do we do it,
That is the question.
if what you mean by it is
All of the previous paragraph.
yeah, if what you mean is sheltering, or how do I shelter my kids but not make them rebellious?
Oh,
Because that's what it sounds like the question is
Yeah.
how I want to
Well,
protect them,
but I don't want them to become rebellious.
but I don't want them to become
Well,
rebellious.
I don't think you can guarantee one or the other. You can shelter kids, and they may never become rebellious. I can tell you people that were very sheltered
Sure.
and are not rebellious.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I can also tell you the opposite.
Yes, and I can tell you people that were unsheltered and then went more, what people
Yeah.
would call rebellious. They
So what you're saying, Ed, is it don't matter.
evil is bound up in the heart of children.
Oh, that's what he's saying. Okay.
I think that's from the Bible.
Something like that.
Something like it. Yeah, I think if the question is how do we do that, I don't even know how to address that because I don't even think that's a goal.
No, it's not. Which part is not a goal?
Both.
Okay. I thought you
I do
meant-
not think it is
I
my.
will say for my goal, and I don't even remember if we got to this in the last one. When I was in active parenting with little children, my goal was always preparation for what was to come, not sheltering from what I thought might come.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the Not Great Parents podcast.
Ooh.
The way we say it is,
Shameless plug.
yeah, our job, and we've addressed this question. I don't remember what episode it was, but you can look through YouTube.
Is
You'll
Chelsea a fan of your podcast too?
I don't know. She may consider them all the same podcast because if you subscribe to our feed, you see everything.
You see it all.
So it'd be hard to distinguish often from many people.
Gotcha.
So like I do not consider French Friday. This is just a conversation for us. A separate podcast from the Holy Post.
I agree with that.
It all comes to me on the same feed. I'm just downloading them all.
It's,
So-
it's my favorite.
So,
Finish your thought.
the way we say it on that one is our job is not to protect our kids from information. That's what most of us think our job is. Our job is to prepare them for reality.
That's what I think.
And often, and we don't see it this way, protecting them from information is not protecting them. Because if I tell, so for example, if I never tell you, when we had this happen in my home, well, not in my home, in my neighbor's home, but my kids were involved. We have told our girls, guns are dangerous. You are to, if you see a gun, you are to get up, walk away from wherever you are, and you come find me. Now, and I've told them because a gun, improperly handled or properly handled, will kill somebody.
Yep.
Correct? And so I've told them, you get up and leave. Now, we have no guns in our home. We have no guns in our home. So I could protect them from the information that there are people who use guns to kill people. And there are children who die from accidentally using the firearm. And I feel like I'm protecting because I don't want them to know that stuff exists in the world. But then my girls were over in our neighbor's garage and they were playing with the neighbor kid and they're all doing stuff. And one of them opens up a box and there's a handgun in it. And the little girl picks up the handgun and one of my girls runs over and goes, so-and-so had a gun, blah, 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 blah. They come and get me. Me giving them the information was protecting them.
Yeah.
And there's this feeling as if I don't want my kids to know that there are people who get abused, that there are all these movies. I want to protect them from this information. It is helpful to me as the parent to use information at age-appropriate levels. I do not go into everything.
Yeah.
My experience is most parents don't understand age-appropriate. They think age-appropriate is when you're 18, I'll tell you everything you need to know.
Well, I have found with parents through the years, and I do think the age on lots of things has gotten younger because of the way media is now. There's a lot of media in all forms, where it used to be, it was, at first it was just print, and then you had to worry about print and radio. This is before my time. Then print, radio, and TV. And now it's just everywhere. It's in all forms all the time. And so I think that age has gotten younger. But I have noticed parents, when they mean age appropriate, they generally mean when I feel I am ready to say it.
Yeah.
When I am at an age that I feel comfortable talking to this person about it, which for some never arrives.
No.
Never, ever arrives.
It reminds me of the times around here when we have tried to talk to young people about sex.
Right.
And almost always we have parents who will come back and go, well, my kid's not ready for that. And we know now that the average age a kid is exposed to pornography is 9, and it's going down.
And going down.
And so anytime after that, the likelihood your kid's been exposed to it already is very, very high.
Well, and that's the average. And this, so it's
When you
even
have an
younger.
average, it's younger.
That's right.
For many.
And so what I often, and I remember saying this on the Not Great Parents podcast, I have a little better chance than most parents of sheltering my kids because my kids are homeschooled. If your kids are in a public school environment, forget media.
Yeah.
Right.
And all of us know this. Most of the stuff, the example I just used, it was another child who found a handgun. And you know what I mean? Like there's no way for
All
me
the
to
first
protect them.
information I got about almost everything came
Right there.
from kids at school.
Me too.
Right.
Me
I don't
too.
mean just sex. I mean almost
Everything.
all the information I got that my parents
Yes.
did not want me to have.
Yes.
It all came from other kids.
I was always hearing words and concepts
Yep.
in elementary school that I had no idea what they were.
And they would give me the concept that went with the word, and then later I'd find out, no, they were wrong. That is not at all
Well,
what
of
that
course.
means.
Of course.
And you can't protect your kids from it
That's
because
right.
once again, my kids are homeschooled. At church, they come home and tell me this kid drew a picture of this body part. And I knew it was a boy's body part, and I knew it was X, Y, and Z. And it happened in a classroom because you cannot protect your kids. And now, as soon as the teacher saw it, they were like, "Oh my God, what's that?" But here's the truth. Once a teacher comes over and goes, what is that? All the other kids go to that kid. What did you draw?
What is
What
that?
was that?
What did you draw?
Show me how to do that.
There is no way, unless it's going to be you and your children alone off on a compound. And then when they turn 18, it's still going to happen. And so I think the better option, my goal as a parent is I want to prepare my kids in such a way that because once again, I can't make it happen regardless of what they choose about rebelling against me. I want them to understand how I see the world based on what I know about Jesus.
Yes. And so I try to tell them, I think the appropriate thing for Christians to do with all kinds of things is to give information at age, and what I mean is age appropriate information about everything that the kid notices.
Yes.
You know, and it doesn't mean you have to tell everything you know.
No, of course not.
You tell enough for the kid to go, oh, okay, but everything you say should be completely accurate. It should not be trying to protect
Yes.
them from something. And then you give them more information as time. That's my opinion of how you handle all of that.
And the reason for that is because the moment your child catches you holding back or
Yep.
giving you misinformation, now you've become a person in their life that they can't fully trust.
They cannot trust the
Exactly.
information that comes from our
And as
parents.
I've said a million times, now you have lost relationship, and relationship is everything.
That's right.
As a parent.
Well, and I remember Molly and I talking about this on the thing. I remember hearing about things from my friends, whether it be about sex or drugs or any of these things, and thinking in my head, oh, my generation invented this. This thing, like my parents, there's no way my parents know about this. But then occasionally we would be watching movies or TV shows and that thing would come up, whatever it was. And it was normally my dad, but I'll say my mom did it too. One of them at some point would go, do you know what that is? And I'd be like, oh my God.
I'm praying to God you don't.
Yes. Well, and here's what I'll say. If you want to take the power, and so this gets back to the question. I know we walked a long way around it. I have always, in my home, with my kids, there are things I do not, so I'll just say, here's the rule that my wife and I use pretty regularly. We do not try to watch anything that is sexually explicit, especially for the purposes of evoking lust within a person. So what I mean is graphic sex scenes, nudity, even certain movies that are like PG-13 that clearly this is supposed to make me want to engage in this ungodly sexual activity, right? But all of my kids at this point, my youngest is 7, all of them understand the mechanics of sexuality. And so things occasionally come up in movies where someone makes a joke or something happens, or you see two people kiss and they go to bed or whatever, right? But not like a graphic sex scene. And one of my kids will say to me, or if they don't, I will have the conversation of, so what do you think about that? Do you think that's what God would want us to do? Why do you think people do that? Why would someone have sex with someone they just met? Well, I remember we were watching a movie where someone picked someone up in a bar and they went home and had sex, a one-night stand kind of thing. And my girls go, why would you even do that? And I said,
Great. That's great conversation.
That's a great
Yes.
conversation
So
to get
then
to
I
have
go,
with a parent.
Let's talk about why it is. If you want to take the power out of lust, let your dad talk to you about why one-night stands might be hot. So anyone who ever wants to, you ain't interested in it at that point, it's not going to be a thing. But my girls are able to have conversations about this. They feel, like you said, they trust me. They know I'm going to tell an honest perspective. They know I'm going to tell a godly perspective. There are things, obviously, and it sounds like you, Chelsea, who sent this, you feel convicted about certain of the things you're watching. If that's the case, then stop watching.
Well,
Yes.
and there were things. I'll say this, and I don't know all of this about Chelsea in any way or shape or form. She said she was rebellious. I was also very rebellious, and there were things early in my Christian life I was so convicted by because
Right.
of my past.
Right.
I couldn't listen to. There was a period of time where I stopped listening to anything but Christian music. There's a whole section of the 80s where I don't really know the pop music of the 80s because I had just become a Christian and I couldn't listen to any of that
Right.
without thinking about the music I had played that had been rock and pop music in a band, and it brought back all of that. I gave up my instruments for a while to not even play because I couldn't think about it. But that hasn't remained my life.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So
I
maybe
stopped-
for a period of
I
time.
stopped playing guitar for a long time just to not have any of those thoughts.
So if the Holy Spirit is convicting you of this, and here's what I'd say, and I do this with lots. There are a lot of things in my life that other brothers and sisters in Christ who I respect and care about, they do. I feel convicted about it.
Yep.
I'm not even 100% sure what I feel convicted of is from the Holy Spirit, but I go, this does not, me not engaging with this would not be sinful to not engage, so I might as well, and I think God honors my ability to look at something and go, you know what, I could engage with that. Maybe I have, as Paul says, I have the freedom
It's very biblical.
to do it, but because I feel like maybe God is leading me not to, maybe I shouldn't.
Yeah.
But there is a level, and I will say this, there is a level, and I'm not saying you intended this in the question. Some of the language, though, of the question is very similar to the way I say things. I would not try to overly moralize or spiritualize your conviction. And what I mean is to refer to everything is demonic. Therefore, anyone who participates in it might be engaging in something demonic. That may not be the most helpful because it is very tempting to then become very critical and judgmental of other people when I'm firmly convinced anything that fits into this area.
Well, and there are things that can have demonic power for me, and that I mean, what I mean by that is I have, because of previous experience, given the tempter power over those things in my life.
Yes.
It doesn't mean they have any power over in your life.
So, for example, a movie a lot of parents may not let their kids watch. My girls and I were watching the movie Exorcism of Emily Rose the other day. This is a movie about demonic activity. It's made by a believer, and it's based on a true story of a girl who, whether you believe it or not, at least the case was about, she said she was possessed. She died in the middle of the exorcism. They put the priest on trial because they said that he should have done X, Y, and Z instead of being whatever. It's a great movie. You should watch it at some point. Anyway, my girls and I are watching this, and the movie is about this young girl who gets possessed, and my girls start having questions with me about demonic stuff. And the way I said it to them is I said, we have the Holy Spirit who lives in us, and he protects us from this. But yes, there are real spirits involved in the world. And to the point that you just said is a little bit what I said to them. I said, everybody engages with our spiritual enemy in different ways based on who they are and what they've been through. And the truth is, if you've ever read a lot about people who are involved with whether you call them exorcism or deliverance ministry or any of that kind of stuff, they will often talk about points of trauma, points of sin in your past, points of that are places that they crack open a little bit for this. And so here's what I would say is, there may be things like he said that when you feel it, you go, it feels a little bit, it's not just conviction. You feel dirty when you're watching, you feel bad, and you assume, oh, this is sinful for everyone. It may not be. It may be because of something in your life. This does not lead you to godly, what are all the things Paul says, right? Noble and true and uplifting and beauty. If it does not bring that out of you, I can see you choosing to say, this is not right for me. And I have drawn lines, I'm sure you guys have, of things I don't watch that I know other people watch.
Yep.
And for me, they're not good. I've had a lot of issues with lust and pornography in my life. There's a lot of movies and TV shows I can't engage with because it just does not put me in a good place. And so,
or like you said, it's designed to evoke that out of you.
Right.
And that's never mind. That's again, back to what you said, for me.
Yeah, that's right.
I've decided that ain't happening.
That's right. I don't want that to happen, so I don't do it.
Because I don't, as the Bible would say, I don't want to give the devil a foothold.
Yep.
That's right.
I don't want to.
That's right.
I don't want to leave a crack where this can happen. And
I fought those battles and lost, and now I've fought the battles and won, and I don't want to have to fight in the same way anymore.
Yeah.
And
That's the way it is for me.
And so for me, I would try to, as a parent, use media as an opportunity to have conversations with my kids. From my wife and I, because our kids are homeschooled, honestly, I didn't want them to get to middle school, even middle school ministry here, and other kids start telling them things, and they get to be the ones who interpret things for them.
Yeah.
But if your kids are going to school and other kids have that opportunity, I would want to be the one who helps interpret
Well, it's
that
always
for them.
better when your kids have more information than the other kids. When the other kid
Yes.
says something and your kid clearly goes, "No, man, that is not what that body part's called."
Yes. Or that's not
That
how,
is
Or
not how that
we
works.
talk about people. Or
That
that's
is not how that works. That is not the way that.
or
God
even
is-
here's a small one. We watch a lot of movies. We were watching a movie. I can't remember what, maybe Mean Girls or one of those where they showed a high school party and all the kids some kids are going up to bedrooms and every kid's drinking and there's drugs and all these kind of things. And they said to me, "Is that what high school parties are like?" And I said, maybe at some point in history, but I will tell you this. I said, that statistic is dropping through the floor. The amount of kids that are having regular promiscuous premarital sex in high school is dropping through the floor. And the benefit of that is when they watch a TV show, I don't want them to feel like, man, I'm weird because I'm not having sex.
Well, now-
I'm weird because I'm not drinking and X, Y, and Z.
I will add, though, that it's now been dropping long enough that a part of the reason we know it's been dropping is because pornography is on the
Oh,
rise.
sure, sure.
And kids are replacing sex with other, and
Yes.
they are both wrong. The,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
evil one has
Absolutely.
taken that crack and used an opportunity
Yeah.
to the point that now there's whole generations of people that they're struggling to have any kind of relationship at all with people because they
Absolutely.
replaced it. It's just one of those things we have to just be very careful about. That
Yeah.
you talk about the whole thing.
Yeah.
You, as you said, media in all its forms should be used. And I'm not saying, I'm just saying you should talk about this stuff instead of drawing really hard lines. That your kids will want to look behind the curtain.
And I will
see.
say, if this feels overwhelming, we do have, I guess, almost 100 episodes we had a podcast that's still available on our YouTube page, the Family Movie Night Podcast. The whole point of the podcast was me and a few other people. We would recommend movies that we were watching and talk to you. Our main point was we wanted to help parents begin to learn the skills of how do I interpret what I'm watching for my kids. We would give you ways of talking about this movie or that movie. And if you want to go, well, how do I even begin? I would maybe go watch a couple of those episodes or listen to a couple of the episodes and then maybe try. Okay, well, we'll watch this movie. And I now have some handles of things I can talk about because I do think it's helpful. And this is not to say you have to watch every movie or watch
No.
whatever.
You don't have to watch any of it.
No, but the main point that I think we would want to say is you need to be having conversations with your kid. If your goal in parenting is, I want to protect them from anything that could harm them or that they may do to harm themselves, I think that is a failing goal.
there's a theological thing that I've always had, and I think I taught this years ago, but it's firmly in me that protection. You put protection around something that you believe is pure. Everything on the inside is clearly good.
Sure.
And if you can keep anything bad from getting to it, it'll be okay. Theologically, that's not true about a human being.
No.
Human beings are not, we aren't just pure and then somehow somebody else corrupts us.
Yes. The corruption is already within us.
Yeah, there is within us this spirit that I want to be in charge of and make my own decisions. From the time we're just really little, you don't have to watch a child very long to know you can say no about anything and they want the answer to be yes.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the spirit of. So if I can't, if they're not pure already, what I have to do is I have to prepare them for the schemes of the evil one as a
Right.
Christian
Right.
to help them battle what I know they're going to face. I have more experience than they do about those things. I can't just protect them because the problem is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm preparing them to deal with a problem that is there. And we know the solution. The solution is Jesus and the Holy Spirit that lives inside of us, the community of saints, the Bible that guides us, people around us to help us stay on the path and practice the way of Jesus from the time we're little. And you can avoid a lot of mistakes. I mean, I admire the fact, and I think this is largely true in some ways, that none of us are perfect. But my wife has avoided many, many, many of the mistakes that I made and that other people I know made because she had a great church community around her
Right.
and parents that loved her and made sure she was involved. They made mistakes like every other parents have made. But she did not have to go through some of the other trauma of people I know, and she's just walked a pretty good path her whole life long.
Right.
I know lots of people that have done that. And that's what I would prefer for my kids. That's what I did prefer for my kids. I just tried to say, how can I prepare them to walk that path by giving them the information I have? It was no different than when it came to, I know things about owning a home or managing finances or about how to change oil in a car that none of my sons had. I didn't want them to have to blow up a car before I taught them that.
That's right.
Yeah.
I wanted to prepare them for it.
Yeah, the way I've done that with my girls is I've tried to be the place that they know they can come to
Right.
when these issues come up, and on the other end of that, for me, always this is hard, but not panicking when they do.
Right, that's right.
You know,
Yeah.
they come to, or I find out that they've been exposed to something.
That's
and
right.
if my first reaction is, you can't watch that, you can't see that, you got to, no, don't ever, and then freak out, then it does that thing of it creates that curiosity, the curtain goes down. I always tried to be that non-anxious presence of, okay, let's talk about that.
That's right.
How did that make you feel? Were you thinking at time? What did you hear? What did you see? Let's talk about that, and then bring it down to, like you said, to a more God-honored, Christ-centered kind of way of how do we approach it? How do we think about it? And this is how we do it. Our family is different.
That's right.
You say that a lot.
Yes.
As a believer, I think you ought to.
I think you have to, and I think that's the other part of it that's difficult for parents when they watch movies. Is I'm afraid my kids are going to get ideas.
Yeah.
I'm afraid, or they're going to see something. And like I was talking about with the party thing, I'm going to feel like, well, everyone does this, and I'm going to be weird if I don't. I regularly say to my kids, and I remember recently reading in a book where they were talking about the book about Christians being foreigners in their country, and it said, honestly, because Christians have had, not recently, but at the time this was written in the late 80s, Christians up to that point had so much public kind of sway in their life. Christians had kind of forgotten they were supposed to be other and different than the culture. And he said, but if you look at Jewish families, devout Jewish families, they regularly had to say, it's okay for everyone else to go play baseball on Saturday. We don't, because we're Jewish.
That's right.
And he said, we need to recapture that among people of, you know what, I don't know, because my kids are getting to the place where they watch and they go, so God doesn't like what those people are doing, but everyone else seems to be okay with what they're doing. And I said, you know what?
Maybe
because they don't follow God,
That's right.
they can do what they want to do. You follow God, and he said that's not an acceptable
That's
way
right.
to behave. And I want my kids to get used to that peculiar way of living, which is, oh, wow, this is a little uncomfortable that other people live in different ways. Because how many people do we know, or at least hear about, but I know personally, who grew up in very kind of sheltered Christian environments, or everyone they knew was a Christian. Then they go to college and they go, I was kind of taught anyone who didn't believe in God was an idiot, or they didn't have to think, or anyone who was a Buddhist or a Muslim, they were bad people. And it turns out my roommate is a Muslim, and they're one of the nicest people I've ever met. Turns out this part isn't true, but this is what they feel. Everything I was taught was a lie. Well, no, that one thing you were taught wasn't true, but it's easy to toss it out. My parents said if you have premarital sex, your life is going to get blown up. And then you meet a friend who does, and you go, oh, they're doing all right.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we know, long run, that's not a great thing. But in the short term, your kid looks and goes, what is this? And we go, look, our job is not to judge what they're doing, but we have agreed to live differently.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important thing for us to recapture.
And even if you see in all the media you're taking in, everybody doing it that way, it doesn't matter. Even if that were true, if every high schooler was, going to parties, drinking, we are different.
Yeah, we don't do that.
We put this up against the lens of the Word of God and the way of Jesus.
That's right.
And we live His way, and it doesn't matter what all the media tells you.
That's right.
And that's okay that they understand and see that. In fact,
I think it's important.
I do too. I think it makes it a stronger message as well.
And then to also add the thing that didn't get added for me often, which is, and we don't have to condemn them.
No.
They haven't agreed to live by this.
That's right.
We have decided we want to follow Jesus, and this is the way of Jesus.
Well, it's what we say on Sundays. We are convinced this is the best way to do life.
Right.
That's right.
You may not be convinced of that yet.
Right.
That's all right.
That's right.
That's right.
Okay. Maybe round 2 was better.
Well,
I don't know.
We'll see.
we don't know. Maybe
'Cause I don't remember round
if
1.
this file corrupts,
We will
again,
know.
Maybe
We'll
that's a demon.
Yeah,
maybe
we'll
it
just
is.
go.
Maybe that's a demon.
We'll just decide this is done.
So assuming this file does not get corrupted, hope y'all got some stuff out of that. And if you have more questions about this or something else, send it on our way. There's a link in the description. You can do it that way. Get in touch with us. We'll answer it as best as we can. Next week, when we come back, assuming this one goes out, we've got a question that lots of folks have about something Ed said in a message a few weeks ago. It has caused quite the controversy,
Well,
Wow.
relatively.
relatively speaking,
Let me tease it, Ed.
okay, all right.
You're killing
blow
it.
up.
People are dying to know.
That's
right.
provocative.
Yes.
Yes, provocative was the word in the question. That is a provocative.
So if you come back next week, we will deal with the controversy.
The
Dun, 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 dun.
massive controversy.
So come on back. Have a good week. See ya.